Welcome back, everyone, to Brown Game Strong, and I am here with an icon, basically, Srishti
Mhm.
Guptaroy, illustrator and artist and fashion designer as well, an overall maximalist, which we're going to go into a little bit. Super, super stoked to have you. Yeah, what brings you to London? Tell us that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, what gets me to London is not like an exciting professional story, actually. It was very one of those like typical stories where the husband moves and the wife kind of moves behind him. So
Hmm.
it is one of those stories. My husband and I have always like kind of discussed getting a chance to live outside the country for some time. We've always been fascinated, and he did his university in the UK as well. And when his company had an opportunity that was to join the London office, I think both of us kind of said, okay, let's go for it and see. So, yeah, I mean, like he moved and I kind of moved behind him in a way. So, it's not so exciting professionally. There wasn't like a big project that was happening because of which I moved. But since then, I've been trying to look out for work and like get things done over here. And yeah, it was like almost like as a journey, like we both decided that this would be a good time to travel. And when you're in London, travel is so accessible.
Mm.
Like it's almost like you can see half the world just by the virtue of being in London. And so this is that phase in our like life together where we want to explore this part of the world and travel a lot.
Have you gotten to travel much around Europe and nearby?
Yeah, we have actually traveled quite a bit. We went to Spain last year 2 times. We went to Morocco this year already. We've done like a little bit of UK on its own. Then we went to Portugal. We went to Budapest. So yeah, doing like every weekend, like trying to figure out like how to maximize the Schengen visa basically. Because getting the Schengen visa here is so hard. Like I don't know why we were under the impression in India that oh once you get a BRP in UK you can just travel into Europe like nobody's business. That's not true.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, congratulations on getting a Schengen visa.
It deserves congratulations. I will agree with that.
Okay, let's talk about your I guess your early years because I'm really excited to get into all of the stuff you do now, but I'm very curious to understand how you got there. So, can you tell me a little bit about baby Shrishti and what it was like growing up, where you grew up, and what kind of cultural influences you had on you?
Uh, I grew up in Kolkata, which is in the east of the country and quite famous all over India as being the cultural capital of the country in a way. So I think like all Bengalis, like growing up, it's almost considered a rule that you have to study one of the arts. That can be visual arts, it can be dance, it can be music. It's a very important part of culture growing up. So, and if you're lucky, or I would like to say unlucky, then your parents are going to enroll you in all of them and see which one sticks. So my mother was also like one of like it wasn't I won't say it was not even pressure. It was considered like a very normal thing to do. It was almost like a rite of passage. Like you have studies, but then you have to have like 2 3 extracurricular activities which you do simultaneously, which is given quite a bit of importance in the culture. So I did try learning like classical music for quite some time with a proper harmonium. Then there was like some failed dance class attempts. And then there was drawing that was always happening simultaneously. And I would now, when I look back in retrospect, like I have so much respect for my mom that she kind of kept this going on the side no matter how much the studies got harder. Because she said that you need to have like a outlet beyond just studies. So even when I stopped going to the drawing class, she had like a tutor who would come and like on Saturday, Sunday teach us like some fine art. Then that would graduate into like teaching like basic methods of pottery. Like so and a lot of students from Calcutta Art College actually kind of work as like these part-time tutors in houses and teach art to kids. So my mom found a very good art teacher who would come to our house. Then in school also, I think like naturally I would gravitate towards some of the art classes, dramatics classes, apart from just the studying part of it. And I mean, all of this, of course, happens in retrospect. I realize what a big influence my mom has been in terms of inculcating this, and in terms of her almost like making it a point if there's like a little bit of a culture, anything coming to Kolkata, like this art exhibition that is coming for like 1 week or 2 weeks, she would make it a point for me to go with her and like
Mm.
see those things, even if I would understand or not understand, which now I realize that, oh, this was kind of like that artist building activity which she was probably doing without realizing. And like that would be like, yeah, no matter what the situation is, there's like uh, if there's a flower show that is happening in horticulture garden, my mother would make sure that the kids, both her kids are going and seeing that. So I feel like I was kind of blanketed by art all around in different forms growing up in Kolkata.
Mm.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I always enjoyed it. I did have like a knack for it growing up. And my mom is a brilliant artist herself.
Mm.
So yeah, and she never pursued it further, which is one of my biggest grouses with her because she really had the talent too. But yeah, I always enjoyed it. And like I think growing up was so delightful in Kolkata, and like I think growing up without social media and internet, and
Mm.
it's like it was such a different time. Like you had to kind of entertain and excite yourself with whatever like things were available that time. Like I remember with my sister, we used to have this publication where we would hand draw like newspapers
Mm.
and like do this thing called Sri's Fun World, because my name is Srishti, her name is Srijoni. So Sri's Fun World. So we would like hand draw newspapers and give it to the people in our locality. Then
Wow.
we would like do these art exhibitions where we would take like artworks from all the kids in our building and like put it up in the house, invite their parents to come and see it. Like it was just like a charming, like sweet, fun, adorable growing up period.
Love that you can think back to it with fondness, because I think that's one thing that makes me a little bit sad about today's generation, is that they are glued to screens like from when they are born. And
Yeah.
I'm similar in that I'm a 90s baby. So
Yeah.
I grew up with a huge chunk of my life where I didn't have the
Yeah.
internet, or I was just about getting on the internet with that really clunky dial up and the
Correct.
big
Yeah.
computers that I could only use for like an hour every day or something. Similar to you, grew up dancing in my room. I grew up drawing.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was just because I didn't have the training, the way that you had access to those classes. Where I grew up, it was just literally I would take a photo of like SpongeBob and I would
Yeah.
redraw it or something.
But it's so charming, right? When you think about it
Yeah.
now and you're like, oh, this is what we were. It was like actual legitimate imagination.
Yeah.
Like just because there was no visual context for most of it. Like we didn't even, like I don't even remember honestly like having access to, I mean TV to a certain extent, yes, it's not like I didn't. But then even like having the visual like imagery of like US, UK had not reached India until much later. So a lot of the things that came out of your head actually honestly and truly came out of your head. And the fun magazines used to come with the newspaper once a month. Then you used to be excited about getting like this Bengali magazine used to come once in a year, which is called Ananda Mela, which is like the Durga Puja special, where there would be beautiful illustrations and artworks. And I remember like the entire year used to go and wait for those and then cut out and like keep it like almost like a prize memento, like, oh, I'm going to replicate this.
So you mentioned TV. I want to know a little bit about who your inspirations were when you were growing up. Like, what did you grow up listening to? What did you grow up watching?
I know a lot of people like love Cartoon Network, especially our generation. And don't get me wrong, I love Cartoon Network. Okay, there used to be that 1 hour of TV where they used to play Dexter's Lab,
Oh,
followed
love.
by Powerpuff Girls. And no, actually, I could be getting the order wrong, but it was just like that 1 hour with like 2 or 3 of the best shows, which all of us watched. But Nickelodeon actually surprisingly came when we were just about like I think 11 or 12 years old. And now, in fact, like I mean, unfortunately, I got back to how much Nickelodeon was an influence very recently after that horrific documentary came out, which is not the best way to go back to it. But then I realized how much of the Nickelodeon shows I actually watched and how much the humor of like and all that, or like the Amanda Bynes show really affected what humor for me at that age was, which was like the preteen age, sorry. And Nickelodeon was a big influence then. I remember Comedy Central with Friends and all this had come much later when we were already about 16, 17. I don't think we were that young for it to be fully formative. I didn't have internet until I was 14 or 15, I think. Though we had like a dial up which my dad would use at night for work, but we didn't have access to it too much growing up. But then hi-fi happened, the first social media when you were 15. But TV, yeah, we did. I mean, there was a decent amount of pop culture influence. It wasn't. But a lot of it was, I think, homegrown influence of pop culture as opposed to like international pop culture. And then VH1 had also, now that everything is coming back to me, I think little by little. Remember VH1 also starting somewhat around that time. But everything used to happen, like there used to be dedicated time when you would watch TV. It wasn't like an ongoing, like continuous screen happening on the side.
For me, it was Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
Growing up in Spain, we all had like Saturday mornings of just all the cartoons back to back.
Yeah.
As Tom and Jerry, and then it would go on to, like you said, Powerpuff Girls and all of the Cartoon Networks. I loved Courage the Cowardly Dog.
It's so odd when you think about it now,
Such
right?
a weird show, but it
It's
was
so
my favorite
weird.
show.
It's bizarre. The show is it's a bizarre
And creepy.
show. Yeah, it's legitimately creepy. It was a creepy show.
I really want to try and I guess I would love to know how those sort of shows growing up have impacted our psyche, like you touched on.
Yeah,
right?
recently, recently this Nickelodeon documentary that came out, which is doing the rounds. I just heard like a little bit about it online. And then I went into that. I'm like, did they do like weird subliminal messaging, which I just didn't understand? Because I used to watch Nickelodeon fairly often, like at that phase, especially the shows that they're talking about. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, that's so weird. I don't want to know about it actually.
Yeah, you don't want to know. Disney was the same as well,
Yeah.
wasn't it? So I did a bit of stalking and I found out that you actually studied science though. After all of this,
Yeah.
you went into science, Srishti.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Listen, 11 and 12, okay, I didn't have the courage of conviction to choose a different field. And
Mm.
also, I genuinely did like science. Like, I was, which I still like, I really enjoy like science, like listening to science podcasts and like just generally like knowing about weird physics things, weird things to do with astronomy. But yeah, in 11 and 12, I think there was still I don't know what I want to do later. So science seemed like an easier option to get into different fields
Mm.
as opposed to choosing arts and commerce earlier, because I think that kind of in the Indian education system it kind of restricts the professions that you can do after that. If you do a science, the chances of you bifurcating into any other field after the 12th grade is much easier. So I think it was one of those reasons where I'm like, it makes sense if I haven't decided fully now.
Mm.
Then once I'm done with it, then if I want, I can still study economics if I want to. So that was one of the rationale that I gave my mind, that I gave myself that time in 11 and 12. But I did enjoy studying science in 11 and 12, surprisingly. Like,
Mm.
but then I don't think I could have done it for the rest of my life.
Mm.
But
Why not?
I think like the options in front of us that time, like what you can do after you study science was so limited, which is actually terrible if I think about it, because there's so much you can do after studying science, right? But that time, there were only two options that were kind of given as a template, which is an engineer or a doctor. And even an engineer, I think most people who did engineering also at that point didn't even know what an engineer had to do. It was almost like, oh, it is a very cut, like a straight path that's given. This is what intelligent people do. This is what I'll do. But the fact that you can do so much research, the fact that you can get into a specialized field was something that was not even a possibility back then. So
Mm.
when I looked at the possibility, I knew I could not be a doctor. That was pretty clear. So when I looked at the other option, which was engineer, if you like study physics, chemistry, and go into that field, I was like, I can't see myself being an engineer either. So it was not like there was enough research done on my part or my I will say on a society level to give kids an option that science doesn't need to be that you can only go into these two paths.
Mm. Was that also due to the influence around you, like familial influence or what your friends were studying at the
Yeah.
time?
I wouldn't say my family put direct pressure to pursue science or like take up any of this, but there was definitely an overall I won't say pressure, but like a little bit of a undercurrent in terms of conversation that, oh, if you're intelligent, that's what the intelligent people do. The
Mm.
intelligent people take up science. The intelligent people do engineering and they get into, medical fields, because obviously you have to study really hard and get incredible marks to get into these fields. So there was only one kind of intelligence that is valued in school.
Mm.
And it seemed like to seem intelligent to the rest of the world, I kind of like, yeah, this is what I do. Like I study science and I have to do engineering. Because I don't want to be coming across in front of people outside who know me thinking that, oh my God, I'm kind of a floozy. She couldn't even study science.
Mm.
Yeah.
So fast forward to you go to university and you pick a degree in fashion.
Yeah. So I think if I look back in the entire trajectory of my life, this is one of those pivotal decisions that I made, which I don't know where this, I won't even say courage or where this like general gumption to like not do the familiar came with, but it was just like the path in front of me. I see, I did give a lot of engineering entrance exams, and to be very honest, I didn't fare very well in those exams because those
Mm.
are highly competitive exams, almost requiring like a different kind of intellect level as well as like a different kind of studying that you need to do to crack those exams, which I did not pursue to that extent. So I thought that maybe I can do like a physics undergrad or like an undergrad in one of the core subjects of science and then figure out what to do after that. And that was one option. And then during that time, because I was good in art and design, I'd heard about like the NID entrance exam and the NIFT entrance exam, and kind of I think gave the exam almost a little bit on a whim to
Mm.
be like, okay, so this is something that I just want to keep like a door open. And then when I ended up doing well in those entrance exams, especially the NIFT entrance exam, I had a real choice in front of me for the first time, where there was a possibility of studying physics, and I had gotten into a really good college in Delhi University. And the other option was to study in NIF Delhi, the fashion design course. And I don't know why, like, I think I took time from, I wanted to do this decision in a staggered way
Mm.
because I wasn't myself sure. Like, now I can tell with all sorts of cockiness that, yeah, I knew exactly that moment I was going to do it, I did. So I kind of took time from my parents that give me 1 year. These, like, I know the Delhi University can defer admission by a year. So I wanted to go to NIFT for a year and see if it's something that sticks. And if it sticks, then I'll pursue the course. If not, I'll go back to DU and start first year. Yeah, I'll lose a year, but I'm okay losing a year in the larger scheme of things. But then once I went to NIFT, it was like, yeah, that was the end of it. Like, once you design college, like, you enter a whole new world of like people and vibe, and just everything is just a different universe. Then it's very difficult to come out.
Mm. How was
So,
it different? Like what were the things that drew you to that environment?
uh, so after school, growing up in Kolkata, I told you, like, a pretty charmed like childhood. Pretty much the people who are around you are like people who you have grown up with from the time you're 5 years old to the time you're 18. So in a way, I would say it's a cocoon. And Calcutta is one of the big cities in India, but it's still kind of sheltered in a way. I would not call it like a modern cosmopolitan city where lots of people keep coming and going. It's beautiful and charming and cultural in its own way, but still very sheltered, I would say. But a Delhi and a Bombay are probably one of the few cities in India where it is eclectic and vibrant, and it has influence from all over the world and all over the country. So when you move from a Kolkata to a Delhi, which is kind of the epicenter of everything happening, the fashion week is happening in one side, design festivals are happening on another side. It has history which is very old, it has new things happening all the time. All the best stores in the country are opening up there. It's just you go over there and you're suddenly exposed to like so many things which you wouldn't imagine.
Mm.
That's one. And in terms of design college itself, like, you meet like people from all over the country, because one of the good things about like colleges like NIFT is that it's a government college, and it's done through an entrance exam where, to a certain, I will say, it is a meritocratic exam where people from all over the country get selected. So you have people, so I met people from the south of the country, I met people from the north of the country, from the east, from the west, which I never had exposure to the people of my own country.
Mm.
And then you go to college and you Sunday, you're like, okay, your classmates are somebody from Jharkhand, somebody from Bihar, somebody from Kerala, somebody from Delhi, and everybody's coming together and doing the same course. I think it's sort of like Sunday, like, goes like, okay, this is fun, this is super interesting. And
Mm.
everybody's coming with their own design point of view, their ideology, how they grew up, what their point of view is. It's just an exciting place to be at 18.
Mm-hmm. Are you still in touch with these people?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, my best friends in life are friends from college.
Mm.
Like, I am so thankful for that experience. Like, I think when you go through like a rigorous course like NIFT, because a lot of people don't realize that NIFT is a very, very, very rigorous course, and it's a professional course. So you have assignments like nobody's business.
Mm.
You do end up chilling. I won't say that you don't take out time and have fun, which all college kids do, but it is rigorous in the sense that you have to put in like 20 hours a day in work, and
Mm.
assignment after assignment, which is extremely time bound, and time management plus multitasking. So when you do that kind of a rigorous course with the same people for like 3 4 years, because you have the foundation program, which is 1 year, and 3 years is your specialization course, I think it kind of bonds you for life.
Oh, love
Yeah.
that. Okay, so now we go into the corporate world. You took up a corporate job after that.
Yeah.
Um, how, I guess, did you know always that you wanted to start your career in that way?
I didn't have the gumption to start anything of my own right after college. And I think my parents also, to a certain extent, were okay with me doing design college, because they were like, yeah, after you're done with college, you're going to get into like a regular job, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's fine. Like, we gave you this, you have to give us this much in return, right? Like, you can't be like now saying, yeah, I'm going to start my own brand, I'm going to take out a loan and do this. So I was like, yeah, I get it. Like, I will like probably get into like a corporate job, which in retrospect was, of course, the easier, I won't say easier, but like a safer option to take up at that point. Because again, what we don't realize is that if you want to start a fashion label right off the bat and right after college, you need to have phenomenal amount of funding,
Mm.
and it is a very, very capital intensive field to get into. And there is a little bit of a demarcation between the haves and the have nots in the industry if you want to start off a brand so young. So a lot of people choose, like, if case they want to start a brand, either they start working with a more established designer and then eventually start a brand, or a lot of people go in the corporate route and probably save up some money and then start a brand, or a lot of people who probably have the family backing will do that right off the bat. So these are the kind of trajectories you can go in if you want to start your own brand. For me, I wasn't personally sure whether I wanted to start my own brand because didn't have clarity of thought at 21 for sure. So this seemed like a good safe bet, and these were good big brands known all over the country. And I was like, okay, I didn't give it too much thought. I just was like, okay, this is a good placement. It's a good uh, job opportunity for right now. Let's go for
Mm.
it. So
Mhm.
that kind of moved me from Delhi to Bangalore when I was 21.
So, what were the roles that you took on then in these companies?
Yeah, so I started my career working in this company called Madura for this menswear brand called Peter England, and I worked as an assistant designer. So it was very junior, just a starting position. But Madura is one of India's biggest like corporate companies in terms of like retail wear, like retail, and legacy company, been there for a very long time. Considered one of those very good safe jobs in the industry if I had to. Like if you got a job in Madura, usually people who are interested in building their career in the corporate field like join when they're 21 and probably end up retiring from the company. Like it's
Mm.
that kind of a company. You go, you spend 30 years. It's a good paymaster. I mean, I won't say it does crazy innovative work, but people are nice. It's a safe environment. Like it's very, yeah, it's safe. That's when they do menswear. So a lot of menswear, and a lot of formal menswear. So I won't say okay, it's the sector where you need to be crazy innovative either. You just
Mm.
have to give things which are good quality and at a good price point for the regular Indian man.
Mhm. What did you go on to next?
Yeah, so this phase, now this part, I'm like a little. I always was a women's wear designer. I don't know why I went into menswear. It was just one of those things I was like, okay, like let's see.
Mm.
So I think it was my fault. There was nothing wrong with the job or the people that I was working in, but I couldn't have had satisfaction in that job. Like
Mm.
it was just designed to be the antithesis of who I was as a person. So I was like, okay, so which then I was very clear, okay, you need to have Madura in your portfolio for some time. So
Okay.
I was like, I need to stick out for at least 1.5 years. I don't want to be the kind of person who joins a company and leaves. So I was like, okay, I'll spend 1.5 years. And I mean, this is the part which I always say. I actually met like really great people. Like I had a great mentor, I had a great boss. So the people were great. Like, and I was like, I just have to try to inject as much color and fun as I can
Mm.
in this while I am here. I mean, yeah, it was fine. Like I would say my mentor was so good that he ended up giving me a lot more responsibility than any other junior probably would have at that age. So
Right.
I did do like I won't say the greatest stuff, but yeah, I'm kind of proud of it also. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, so there was like how you have different eras in your like designer life. Like this was like my menswear corporate era. So I'm like, yeah, I'm willing to look at that phase and be like, yeah, it wasn't something I'm going to be screaming from rooftops saying, oh my God, it's amazing. But it was great. It was great for what it was. Like,
Yeah.
I can assure you that for 899 price point Indian rupees, I couldn't have designed a better shirt. Like, that was the best shirt you can get for 899.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that for everyone who got to wear that shirt.
Yeah. I've spotted people wearing it after that in India and always been excited. So, yeah.
I was going to ask you though, just to cut you off for a
Yeah.
second, but did you inject too much color into that job?
They actually surprisingly did luckily hire me for doing the graphic design t-shirts. So I could still inject color, though they were very particular about what colors it needed to be. But sneakily, I did inject color and they were kind of okay with it. Later, I found out some of those really colorful t-shirts actually worked very well.
Yeah.
But I'm like, see, you have to listen to the junior most person on the team sometimes.
Oh yeah, you
Yeah.
do. I think that's the beauty of being our age in a sense that I think corporates are starting to really pay attention to the
Yeah.
more junior minds,
Yeah.
let's say. Because they just know like the world is changing so fast, like they have to keep up somehow,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So what was the next step then after that?
Yeah. So after that, I worked in this company called Agio, which had just started. No, actually, it started right after I joined. So I joined the company before it started. Now Agio, everybody knows it's like a very big e-commerce platform under Reliance, which does a lot of fun stuff. And Agio was a really like good experience because finally I was doing women's wear. So it
Mm.
was interesting to go from because I'd seen the menswear side of corporate. Now I was seeing the women's wear side. I won't say corporate because it was an e-commerce company and because it was just starting, they were very dynamic and agile with how they wanted to design. And you kind of had owners as a designer, and they would give you a lot of responsibility, which was unheard of at that age,
Yeah.
to kind of like be designing something through and through from the design, from the concept phase till the actual manufacturing phase, till like going to the factory, getting the things made. So I really enjoyed the 2.5 years that I worked with Agio. Like I think some of the best price point sensitive clothes that I've ever made was in Agio, and they were very fun at that point about like trying out different things and they categorically got designers on board who had like a very interesting point of view, and they were all very different from each other.
Mm.
So I really enjoyed my stint at Agio. And then after that, I worked with Mintra for a bit, which was about a year, which was also like really interesting. And I actually realized I enjoyed e-commerce a little bit more than traditional retail, because traditional retail is not as agile as e-commerce is, because e-commerce things need to happen much faster. So it's kind of a little more dynamic and like
Mhm.
fun.
Mm. Okay. So then obviously you've had a few stints at various companies. And now you're working for yourself. At what point did you decide that, okay, I'm going to jump ship and I'm going to do my own thing now?
So I think I was kind of feeling it for a little bit while I was working in these corporate companies. That so a little bit of a background actually. Let's start a little earlier. Um, I always used to illustrate on the side, and this is something like my first love is fashion, but I got into fashion through the route of illustrations when I was younger, because it was fine arts and then drawing and painting, always like illustrating. And I used to do this on the side all the time. In fact, in Aju, I did like a few collections which was illustration based. People really enjoyed it, people liked it, but it was always something that I used to do in parallel to the actual fashion designing part of it. And I used to put up these illustrations on Instagram when it had just started. So this was about 2017 or so. Very without any plan or without any structure, sort of like just like in the middle of like six selfies, there's like two illustrations, and that's happening. It's just like a general like Instagram page. There wasn't a thought. And then this friend of mine kind of said that, I think that your illustrations have like some genuine like identity to them. Start a separate Instagram page for your illustration. And when you're starting off, there's no end goal or anything in mind. So I said, cool, like I have anyway a lot of illustrations, so I can like start putting it up on a separate page. So I started putting it up on a separate page. And then I started getting into digital illustrations during that exact phase. And that, I think, was that like almost like a missing puzzle piece, where I was like, oh, this is what it's making my artwork like so much more interesting and so much more like to the next level, I would say. Because I was always a decent artist, but I wasn't necessarily always like somebody with phenomenal skill. Like I had good ideas and a good eye and good aesthetics, I would say, but didn't have like the skill set to always back it up. But digital illustration, suddenly that skill set is kind of there in the app to a certain extent. So
Yeah.
it was like, oh, so I it's a very forgiving medium. So I'm like, okay, so great. I can definitely translate my ideas digitally much better than what I can do with my own hand. So then when I started digital illustrating and putting it up on the page, I think the page started getting a little bit of traction. And I was specific about doing like very highly stylized fashion related kind of imagery in a way, injecting like some amount of humor, because I think that was what like I always wanted to make like the page very fun and very inviting and almost like very non-intimidating, which
Mm.
is the opposite of like what fashion is associated with to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So when that started picking up and I started getting queries for like few projects and stuff, and I was still working in the corporate job, and I kind of started entertaining these like little projects. But what I realized is that it was becoming a little bit of a conflict of interest, because a lot of the people who were approaching me were fashion brands. And since I was working with a fashion brand, according to my contract, I shouldn't be working with another competing fashion brand. So then I realized that, okay, like if this is happening almost organically and I have a little bit of money saved, this would be a good time to kind of like see what the other world has to offer.
Mm.
And I was also clear, okay, I'll go back to Kolkata to some time and I'll give up my. It was like almost. So this is what I always say: if you're making that big jump, kind of have like a little bit of strategy in your head, because I personally couldn't have paid rent in Bangalore and decided to do this simultaneously, because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So this was like, okay, so I will wrap up my house in Bangalore. I'll go back to Kolkata for some time, and I was going to get married in like 6 months from then. So I'm like, this is a great like six. About 7 months, sorry. This is a great 7 months for me to experiment with like doing the freelance work. I'll go back. Mom will be excruciatingly happy to have me back home after so many years. Great. So I'll spend like 7 months before my wedding at home in Kolkata, get my like life to a certain extent in order, do these freelance projects, and I'll give up the house in Bangalore. And it kind of made sense in terms of the timeline of everything falling together, and
Mm.
just decided. But then also, I always had a thought in my head, "Okay, if this doesn't work out, then I'll go back to Bangalore, because my husband is from Bangalore, and then eventually I'll find another corporate job in Bangalore." So again, like giving myself a little bit of a timeline that if it doesn't work in this phase, it's okay. I'll always find another job. Like
Mhm.
it's not going to be the most difficult thing, because I already have like 6 7 years of experience. It's not I won't be starting from scratch per se. So yeah, I just kind of started like that. Didn't make like a very long term plan in terms of I will do this for the next 20 years. This is it. Like now, also sometimes I think that if things don't work out, I can still go back to a corporate job, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting because a few other guests who have like kind of freelance jobs or aren't doing the traditional nine to
Mm.
five route also have this mindset of like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm still experimenting, like years into their career, and they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll just go back to a corporate job
Yeah.
if it doesn't work out. So I
It
love
has
that
a,
that's
yeah,
a
it has
common.
a, I think freelancing has a very interesting way of always making you feel like you just started or like
Yeah,
you just don't know enough or like, oh my God, like I still need to put in that many hours because it is, it's great and liberating, but at the same time, it's so constricting. And I don't know how it's possible for a profession to be both these things simultaneously, but it absolutely is.
yeah,
Like, it's so liberating in terms of, like, yeah, I can choose, for instance, if I want to go on a holiday in the next 3 days, I totally can.
yeah.
But at the same time, a project will come, but I've planned a holiday, but I'm working on that holiday. So it's simultaneously like I have time in my control, but I fully don't have time in my control.
Yeah, because you're pretty much at the mercy of your clients as
Yeah.
well, right? So, in terms of your, I guess, like projects that you've done, what are some of the coolest projects that you worked on, if you're comfortable to share?
I think I've been incredibly lucky. Like I've got a chance to work with some like such fun, interesting, like different types of clients that I would never envision that I would work with. So I think one of the milestone projects in my career is the Michael Kors project because I have so much gratitude for like a company as big as Michael Kors, which has a global presence, to work with a designer who was so new into their freelance career. And I think it kind of gave me like insane amount of flex in terms of just not just with friends, like in the design community, because it was their first Diwali collaboration.
Yeah.
And when you work with like big brands like Michael Kors, which has a lot of structures and processes in place, then I think that the way they approach it is that give you a lot of creative freedom, which
Mm.
actually, ironically, a lot of smaller brands don't. But a lot of the bigger brands, when they come with the point of an artist collaboration, they are open to you doing a lot more than a smaller brand would. So I really enjoyed working with them just in terms of like what it meant to work with Michael Kors in terms of like a kind of a little bit like I've arrived moment because
Mm.
everybody knows the brand, everybody's associated that brand with like, at a different level in terms of where it stands and what it means.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, it's not a project, it's like an ongoing collaboration with Adobe, which is probably like the highlight of my career if I had to like put it. Like I've done so much work with so many different projects. I think I became a designer. I told you about the digital illustration part, right? That
Yeah.
was the missing part in like taking me from a hand-drawn artist to like a digital illustrator. And that genuinely was because of Adobe Illustrator. Like it was because of that app. And I feel like to get to work with the company that made that software and like get to talk in like their Adobe Max summits and like genuinely talk about how that software has changed my life. It's a bit of a full circle.
Mm.
So like I have just, and again, like when you work with companies and brands like Adobe, you realize how much they genuinely love the artists that they work with, that they put you at the center of the entire piece.
I actually wanted to ask you, how did these brands find you?
The answer honestly is Instagram.
Mm.
It's almost incredible, like the reach that you can have on Instagram. So a lot of these brands, in fact, I would like to say could be pretty much like 95% of these brands have like reached out to me through Instagram.
Mm.
And it's just, yeah, that's it. Like I don't, and on Instagram also, I choose not to do targeted ads because it's, I mean, not the, because for me, like whether an Instagram post has 200 likes or 2000 likes, it truly doesn't make any difference to me anymore.
Okay.
Like there was a phase when it would bother me.
Yeah.
I've far gone and left that phase because even if it's the right 200 people and they have the power to start a project or commission a project, that has way more value than just getting a number there, which is
Mm.
2000, 20,000, whatever it is.
It's
So
true.
it's fully through Instagram.
It's true because I guess 200 leads hold so much leverage
Exactly.
compared to 20,000 just spectators.
Exactly. I think we've completely like the number aspect of Instagram has conflated in our heads so much in such a peculiar way that we don't realize that 200 likes, that 200 people have seen your artwork. Can you imagine 200 people sitting here? That's a lot of
Yeah.
people.
I do. I
Yeah.
use that analogy when I think about this platform as well.
Yeah.
But to play a little bit of devil's advocate, did these brands find you because you had a certain following? Because you do have a certain following. So do you think that is still important to have?
Uh, No, I don't think so. I
Mm.
think there was a time when that was important. Especially, I think people who are hardcore into probably content creation and do a lot of brand awareness work, for them, the number is very important because I think it automatically people are trying to sell product or probably like try to have that kind of brand awareness. But if you work as an artist on Instagram, I think that yes, if you have a certain amount of following, the thing is your work will reach certain more people. That is
Mm.
true, just by the virtue of pure like the algorithm. But I don't think that they would give you work if they don't resonate with your style or the pitch that you have given, if it doesn't work for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, if the artwork is not up to the brand standard or up to what they want for a collaboration, even if I get a crazy amount of like or following on my page, I don't know whether it makes any difference to the brand.
Mm.
Because usually when they do artist collaborations, I've realized that they don't do artist collaboration with the intent of selling a product or for brand awareness. They're doing it almost like one of their extra marketing campaigns where they want to be associated with something cooler, edgier, and like a part of the culture of now.
Mm-hmm.
So the alignment and the point of view with which they look at artist collaboration is probably a little bit different if they collaborate with a hardcore say content creator, where I guess
Mm.
the metrics and the insights of those actual numbers matter.
Okay, I think that's really good insight actually,
Yeah.
because I mean, I've been caught up in my head about it. And I'm sure a lot of other people with platforms do as well, where it can be very easy to get confused or confuse yourself or
Yeah.
your platform with, like, say, another platform that's more about content creation.
Mm,
Ultimately, you're an artist and you have an aesthetic. And I think
yeah.
if that aesthetic suits the
Exactly.
brand,
I
they
think
would
that
love
is
that.
exactly. I think it comes down to what is the aesthetic and whether it works for the brand aesthetic, or whether even if it doesn't work, if it's the polar opposite, but something really unique happens
And it makes you
because it's the
think.
polar opposite. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so. I think that's what it's coming down now for the
Yeah.
past like a year or so. I think there definitely was a period where that number was the most important and crucial factor, but I think it is not that anymore personally.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I've said this in other episodes as well. I think the power of word of mouth is humongous.
Mm,
Like the way that you are as a person to work with, but also like the ideas that you come up with, and just I feel like even your unique the look of your work, because I can look at your work and recognize that. So I wanted to ask you actually about the maximalism aspect of your work, because you're such a maximalist in your art. And like we were talking before recording that, all of London is basically just shades of like
yeah.
beige, grey, black, and white. So in a world of that, how do you I guess maintain your authenticity and be loud and proud about your maximalism?
Like when you ask like a designer and artist like what gravitates you towards certain things, it's almost like it's so inherent
Yeah.
and almost like I don't know, part of your DNA, which it just happened without realizing. I mean,
Mm.
I don't know if there was like an exact point where I'm like, oh, I love colors. It just like even if I look back at my artworks from 25 years ago when I was a kid, it still had crazy colors. So now where did that instinct and that love come from? I really don't know. But uh, there has always like now because now I look back at a lot of the stuff because my mom has every single thing I've ever made like kept in a box, so you can kind of see the transition to like a little bit like oh so this kind of triggered that and that illustration was that. I think a huge artistic influence was the Archie's comics, which
Mm.
has a lot of flatly saturated colors and the body proportion, the kind of like illustration, a little fashion illustration esque if you think about it. And that was one of those like visual languages of when I was a kid and when like again like we were discussing earlier that we had like such little references to go by. I think the Archie's comics was like one of those very big references. And if I think about it, they're also kind of maximal, right? In terms of like it's so saturated with colors and prints and like text happening. So that was one visual reference. And then generally, I think like growing up in like a place like Kolkata, which is so um I would say visually heavy, like so much is happening, like architecturally, with the people, with the markets, with everything, that it kind of like, I don't know, like I really don't know. Like I don't know where this maximalism comes from because for all you know, somebody who had the exact same life as me gravitated towards minimalism and they'll tell you the exact same reason. Okay, it just happened and I saw certain aspect of Bengali architecture which automatically resonates with minimalism. So it's almost like I really don't know whether you're wired in a certain way,
Mm.
and you kind of like tap into that wiring. So it's always been versions of like color and print. But with time, of course, like I kind of honed in on it a bit more.
Mm.
Oh, and one more reference, visual reference growing up, who I absolutely enjoyed was Manish Arora, the fashion
Mm.
designer Manish Arora.
Mhm.
And again, like one of the milestone projects is I got a chance to work with Manish like 2-3 times, including for his
Wow.
cookbook cover, which is just like a full circle moment because these are the people you become an artist for. And then you're like, oh shit, I get to work with them. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So Manish Arora was again one of those things. I think when I was 14, 15, when I saw his work first, it kind of like hits you in the face where you're like, oh,
Mm.
wow, like this is like nothing I've ever seen before, but this is everything.
Mm. How cool is that
Yeah.
that you get to work with all these people that you've
I'm
like
making
loved
like
the
a
work
little
with?
bit of a like a design, like an artist like bucket list where
Yeah.
I am like, yeah, some of the stuff that has happened is already feels really surreal, and I'm sure there's like a lot more to come. Like it feels great. Like these are the
Mm.
times when you're like, yeah, I mean, like it makes sense why I do the freelancing and do the sleepless nights sometimes because you get to do things which 16-year-old you would have just been in shock about.
Like screaming
Yeah,
about. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I feel that. Do you work remotely with a lot of these brands? Because now that you're in London, like, are you pretty much global in terms of your reach
Uh,
of your clients?
yeah, it's all remote. Once in a while, there are projects where it will be on site if it's like a mural project
Yep.
or like a certain project where they need the designer on ground to sort of I won't say activate. Like a lot of projects these days, apart from just the designing work, they want like a Instagram reel to be made around it. So they would like to document the process to a certain extent. Um, but that's not that much in number. Mostly it's remote. So that's kind of worked out in a great way. So you can get clients from all over the world and still be sitting wherever in the world.
I love that that's what the digital age has brought us as well.
Absolutely.
The ability to connect with people all around. And similar to you, like I feel like young me is always screaming because I used to follow you in COVID and like now you're sitting in front of me. That's wild.
You're putting me on too much of a pedestal with this comment. I'm like, also aging me. What do you mean young me? How old are you?
Young me, like 3 years
How
ago.
old do you think I am?
I feel like you're not that much older than me.
Yeah.
You're not. Okay, so talking about the future, Srishti, what are the plans for the next 10 years? Do you have an idea?
Who is my mom sent this question?
I feel like
She wants me to. I know what she wants me to say. She wants me to say, "Okay, I'll have kids. I'll do this."
I mean professionally, but whatever floats your boat.
um, so I don't have like again. I think this is a bit of a boon and a bane of like, uh, being a little unplanned, which is that you kind of do go with the flow to a certain extent, to a certain extent, and then to a certain extent you also uh feel super anxious about like I shouldn't be going this much with the flow. I have it's just there's no winning. There's only like different types of losing basically. So, but
That's the most inspirational comment I've ever heard.
you want to like faint it and put it up.
I think so.
There's no winning, just different types of losing.
Oh my God. So true.
It's true.
Oh my
This
God.
is what the 30s will do to you.
Yeah, this is true. I've just entered my 30s era, so I feel you.
Yeah, you'll feel it. It's true. So 10 year. So I am actually, you know what I've done, which is I can tell you this. I for the first time in my life last year have actually set a financial goal for myself. Okay, where I have decided okay, this is the amount of money that I have to put for investment every year. And every year I have to increase that percentage by 10 or 15%. And there's a set number at 35, which is how much I would have wanted to have saved. So I'm working with a financial planner in India also, who is my father-in-law's financial planner. So I don't have a 10-year goal in terms of the career, like these projects and this, but I know within 5 years how much money I want to have saved, which kind of back calculates to the kind of projects I need to be doing and the kind of things I need to be saying yes to. Because it's a pretty, I want a significant number, but it's a decent number where I kind of do have to push myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one thing that I've done. So,
Okay.
and I'm 1.5 years into it. So just did my investments for this year, which I feel awesome about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is a plan, which I know it's not the most straightforward way of reaching the goal, but because I really can't tell with certain things that whether I'm doing the right projects in terms of an overall like brand illustrator per se. So I don't know. So this is a financial goal that I have. So it kind of gives some amount of structure in terms of how much I should be hitting financially per year in terms of the revenue. that has helped me to a certain extent. And now also I feel like I do take up a lot of, I told myself at one point, okay, I will only work with like big brands.
Mm.
But then I realized that's also like a terrible approach, because I do want to work with smaller brands to do interesting things. I do want to work with a startup. I do want to do like stuff where I don't charge money. Also do, I won't say pro bono because it makes me sound like I'm working as like a doing like solving like some big issue. But I do want to work with like a charity organization also. Like I don't want to like restrict myself. I want to have the option to like do like a wall mural one day and like do like a super niche logo kind of a thing for somebody else the next day. So I do want to keep my palette diverse,
Mm.
where I just, if it's interesting and if it sounds fun, why not?
Mm.
While making sure I do enough so that the financial goals are reached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got that structure in place, right?
Yeah.
And it probably helps with charging your worth as well,
Yeah.
right?
That to I to keep that, I don't know if any freelancers fully cracked it, like kudos to them.
Yeah.
It's a very, very difficult, very, very difficult conversation to have with yourself only to begin with. Forget
Mhm.
about with a client.
To then, be faced with a client who just says that's too expensive. What do you do then?
Exactly. And then the math that you do in your head sometimes, which is the worst kind of math, freelancer math, like girl math, is like where you're like the client has not agreed to your price. You're like, okay. Then you tell yourself that, oh, they've not agreed, which is fine. I can move on, or I can have like a little bit of wiggle room, come down, even if they don't agree to that. But then you think, oh, I'm kind of free for the next 2 weeks. Might as well. Then you're like, yeah, might as well. Better to have some money coming in as opposed to zero money.
Yeah.
Where you're like, also kind of like, this is the most idiotic kind of thinking sometimes. But you do ask any freelancer, they'll be like, I don't have work for the next 3 weeks. So I might as well take a project at probably like 70% of what I would have otherwise, as opposed to sitting and doing nothing for 3 weeks, because then I feel like it's wasted time.
Mm-hmm. But then you've undercut everything.
You've undercut everything and you've kind of like made your own pricing go haywire in an attempt to keep yourself busy and in an attempt to be like 70% feels better than zero.
Because then if those brands then talk to somebody else who's looking to hire you, they'll be like, yeah, I paid
Exactly.
this.
So then you are ending up diluting not for yourself, for everybody else around you. So you're doing a disservice. But a lot of us do that disservice almost without realizing, and almost with realizing also saying, okay, being fully vacant and free sometimes is one of the biggest mental hurdles to get over when you're freelancing, because you can really get into like I won't say dark, but like really like overthinking weird patterns. And if you don't have enough self projects or things to motivate you in that phase, you're like, what am I doing with my life? And then you like talk to somebody who has a structured work life, you're like, oh my god, my life sucks. I'm like sitting and doing nothing and
Do you
just
have a lot of
wasting
that?
time. I personally do. Maybe it's not like common to everyone. But yeah, you just feel like you're wasting time, right? You're like, I'm at the peak of my working years. Like, why am I not doing more?
How do you overcome that feeling?
That's the thing. No, I overcome the feeling by saying yes to more than I can handle and then regretting it. So I, as a person, have realized that I can never reach balance personally.
Yeah.
It's for me, the kind of person I am, it's not possible. I will overbook, overcommit, overdo, just like over. And then for some reason, that is my coping mechanism where I will do that. And then there will be like 10 days where I will do nothing. But then the 20 days of the week, I will work for like 15, 16, 17 hours a day casually. But I won't advise it. So I
I
don't
relate so much to this.
Yeah, like what else do you do? Like sit with your thoughts. Like that's
Do you then just
disgusting.
complain to your
Yeah.
Do you complain to your husband that you're too busy and too stressed?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're like, he's like, there's never any like point of like an equilibrium. It's like oscillating between like 7 different highs and lows, and just one day I'll get there, I think. I've kept that in my 10-year plan. That's a post 35.
That could be the 10-year plan.
No, I will. The last end of the 10-year plan. This is not my first half problem. First half is money. Last half is mental peace.
I feel like that's very logical. You've broken it down very well for us. Srishti, I feel like we could talk for ages. I genuinely feel like we could.
But genuinely, like the last part of it is when I think got into like the comfort zone of spinally, I think speaking shit. The right amount of like.
You found the right balance.
Yeah, I found the right balance. I'm like, I've talked enough about
So what
an
persona did we
eclectic
channel
childhood.
today?
Right. I think we started off with like very poignant and like retrospective about growing up. And then I think we went directly into like, which is the persona in my life also currently, which is like just embracing the mess and realizing there is no balance. But that itself can either scare you or give you like a lot of peace.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that nobody got shit figured out and
Yep.
everybody's unbalanced and mess.
And there's no winning. There's only different types of losing.
Exactly. That always works. So remember that. Remember, this was going to take you really far.
I feel like it's the top 3 like most inspirational moments I've had.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Okay, last question for you, Srishti, which I ask everybody.
Mhm.
What do you have strong game in?
So this one, I read the question when you had sent it to me. What do you mean by strong game? Like, what has somebody else answered? Like, if you can help
It
me
can
out.
be anything. I think someone said I have a strong game in making a cup of tea. I have a
Okay.
strong game in holding space for people. Like, it
Okay.
can literally be anything on the spectrum.
Okay.
10 years later.
The more you think about it, the more you're going to stress yourself out.
Nothing is like, I'm just thinking, do I have strong game in nothing? I definitely do. Like, that's terrible. I'm like, that's the end of the conversation. The answer is nothing. Thank you very much.
Well, to be fair, actually, that's a
I thi-
great point. You don't have to have strong game in anything.
Yeah, the moment you said strong game, I'm like, oh, then I'll be like, I'm exemplary at it. I have strong game in coming up with concepts for artworks. Concepts.
I forgot to ask you that actually. How do you come up with them? Because you touch on a lot of pop culture and like fun things happening around the world.
Yeah. So I have this, if you see my phone, there's like a long running notes, which has been going on for the past like 4 or 5 years, where it's just conversations from when I talk to different people, or like overhearing other people talking, or just sort of like find something funny in pop culture and just kind of like write it down. So just like have a running stream of like thoughts, which can later materialize into like a one-liner. But I do think I have strong game in like that one-liner like thing. I think sometimes I do think like a copywriter. And I have and I've worked on like so many different brands and projects till now. But I think the first stage with a brand or project is always you need to come up with a concept, right? And you create a mood board or a concept board. And then from there, you of course do your interpretation as an artist of what you're going to take from that concept board or mood board. I think I'm very good at that first phase, which is the first brand mood board that you create. I think I have strong game in that. Like if I show you some of the concept boards and mood boards, you'll be like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Love that. I can't wait to see some of them.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for people to find out more about your awesome work and commission you more so you can work more 15-hour days and get stressed out.
Absolutely. You have to contribute to the mess.
Thank you so much, Srishti, for coming here, for making me belly laugh,
Thank
and just for being an awesome human being and gracing London with your colour and just
Thank you.
flamboyant
Thank you so much.
nature.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you so much for having me. And like, this is the first podcast that I'm doing with this production value. So that's huge. And on top of that, I'm doing it in London. So that's even better because I would love to have my art open up to a new audience, which I was telling you is one of the harder things when you move countries. So this is amazing. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Brown Game Strong. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to stick around, then please do hit the subscribe button if you're listening on YouTube. And do give the social links a follow as well. We're on Instagram and on TikTok. If you have any thoughts, feedback, advice, any potential guests that you'd like to hear me speak to, then please do drop a note on either the socials or on browngamestrong@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening and really appreciate your support.